So question 1 says, Chapter 3 discusses the 4 sources of self-concept. How have each of these four sources evolved into your current self-concept? The 4 sources are other people's images of you, comparison with others, cultural teachings, and self-evaluations. So, other people's images is like the way you talk in front of your family might be different than the way you talk out in public because you want your family to think more highly of you. So that's something that has evolved into me. And then comparison with others, like if you're in class and it's your turn to give a speech after somebody and the person before you has a really good speech, then like I find it hard to go up after them and give a speech because they just had a really good one. It's going to be hard to compare to theirs. Cultural teachings. The only thing with this one is that like different people you might talk differently in front of. Like maybe you would talk differently in front of somebody who is really religious rather than somebody who isn't, depending on like what you're talking about. And self-evaluations. Self-evaluations, like I'll give a speech or something, and then afterwards I'll sit and I'll think about it and think like, oh, I should have said this or I should have said that, and then I'll become like kind of disappointed with the way I did it because I think that I didn't give it like my full potential. Number 2 says, describe the impression formation processes of how we evaluate other people and explain how these processes contribute to errors in judgment about others and how you might avoid such perceptions. Okay, so I wrote them down beforehand. There's the self-fulfilling prophecy, which is the prediction that becomes true because you act on it like it's true. The personality theory, it tells you which characteristics of an individual go with the other characteristics. So if a person is up there giving a speech and they're talking quietly, maybe you will assume that they're shy, which may or may not be the case. Maybe they just aren't good at giving speeches. The primacy recency effect. So if somebody's giving you a speech, if like the first half of the speech is what influences you first, it's the primacy effect. And if what they say like sticks with you most, then it's the recency effect. Consistency is the tendency to maintain balance among perceptions or attitudes. Attribution of control is the process which you try to explain the motivation for someone's behavior. Okay, so these all explain how these processes contribute to errors in judgment. Okay, well, first off, if you have the primacy effect, then this could lead you to having wrong perceptions, because if somebody is having a hard time giving a speech, then maybe they're like nervous at the beginning and they're not, I don't know, maybe they're not giving good examples or something because they're nervous. And then this is what will stick with you, and then you'll make conclusions about them based on that when they just have a hard time giving a speech. And then if you have like the recency effect, then this maybe would be better because as they get more comfortable, like towards the end, then they'll say stuff, they'll seem more confident, and then you'll assume that they're a more confident person, which this could lead you to errors in judgment because maybe somebody's a really good people person, they just can't like talk to people when they're put on the spot. And I don't know, like maybe like when you're listening to somebody talk, maybe you should just like hold off on judgment until they're done, because I mean you never know really what's going through a person's head. Maybe they have anxiety and they can like, maybe they have a really good personality, they just can't talk in front of more than one person at a time. And I don't know, maybe they just have confidence issues, and you never really know what's going on with somebody, so you really should just hear them out before you start thinking anything of them. Maybe get to know them on a personal level. Number 3, complete the skill building exercise on page 75 of your text. Tell me about your results. Okay, so number 1 on page 75 says, you're interviewing for a job. You want to be seen as credible and as a good team player. So for this one, I think maybe you'd use the credibility strategy so that you can create a positive image for yourself, so that maybe you could be seen as fair and honest. And that's always something that interviewers are looking for, so I think that would come off as something good. And then the other one you could use is self-monitoring, which you don't really want to hide your faults. You maybe just want to refrain from mentioning them. Mention things that you're better at and qualities that are more positive about yourself. Number 2, your term paper is not up to par. You don't want your instructor to think this is the level at which you normally function. So I think a good one for this is the self-deprecating strategy. I think it's not. Some people think it's a sign of weakness when you ask for help, but I don't think that's the case. I think if you're having a hard time with your term paper, you should maybe just go up to your instructor and say, please help me, I'm having a hard time, I don't want to fail this, I know I'm capable of more, I'm just having a hard time. Or the other one you could do if you wanted to is the self-handicapping strategy, which this probably isn't the best choice. I think that the self-deprecating one is better, but I don't know, if you know that no matter what amount of help you're going to get, then you're still not going to do a good job, then I guess you could always go out and party, so you could blame it on that, oh, you had a hard night, that this isn't what you're capable of, just so that you have something else to blame it on. Number 3 says, you want to ask a former instructor to be a friend on a social network site. So I would say the credibility strategy, maybe you upload photos to show that you're, I don't know, a positive person, and show that you're a good character, so then they'll think, oh, this person would be good to have on the social network. Or you could do the self-monitoring strategy, which I think people normally do on social media anyway. They put more positive stuff about themselves so that, I don't know, it's a place, I don't know, they want people's approval, so they put more positive stuff on there so that they hide their faults so that people will friend them. Number 4, you've just started at a new school and you want to be careful not to make a fool of yourself as you had at your previous school. So I would say the self-monitoring strategy for sure, so that people will think you're positive, and then maybe as they get to know you better, I don't know, you want to, when you create a positive first reaction, you have a better chance at gaining a friend, rather than if somebody thinks you're ignorant at the beginning, then they won't want to be your friend. And then maybe the credibility strategy again, just so that people can think you're a good character and that they'll want to be your friend because you're a positive addition to their life. And number 5, you're a police officer assigned to a neighborhood patrol. You want to be seen as firm but approachable. So I would say the credibility, so that they'll believe you're a good person, and that if they ever need to come up to you, that you won't think badly of them. You're a good character, so you'll help them. And then the self-deprecating strategy, but kind of in reverse, because you're the police officer, so you don't really need help. But I would say in reverse, because you want to seem approachable, so if somebody needs help, they can come up to you. And I think that is something important when you're a police officer, because, I don't know, some people think that they're kind of scary, So I think that if you're an approachable police officer, then people will come up for help.